Douglas Brenner Shocks here in Southern California, authorized Ohlins sales and service for both motorcycle and auto. And today I'm going into phase 2 of putting together a TTX36 kit, 36P piggyback. So we're this far now, and now what we want to do is assemble the shaft and put in the adjusters and valves and everything. So here we go. Okay, the first thing we want to do is get the end eyes all assembled, and the top one's already assembled. So basically we want to put in the spherical bearing. So I've already put in one of the circlips. I have another Ohlins autograph model tool, although this actual Ohlins tool. It pushes on the outside of the bearing so it doesn't kind of mess up the inside. It's a real handy tool. You can do it other ways, but it's a real great tool. So basically we have the circlip on one side, and that'll tell it how far to go in. And then we'll go like this and go up to my little press here and straighten it out a little. Let's see, and push it down. There it is, done. Pull it out, and we'll come back down to put the other circlip in. It's a funny camera angle. It's kind of hard to get everything in, but hopefully it's not the most complicated thing. Just make sure that the circlip's in. And then what we want to do is press the end eye into the stop washer. So it's the same kind of thing. This little Arbor press, I think it's Harbor Freight. It's worked fine for me, and there you go. We're all assembled, stop washers in, ready to go. Okay, the next thing that we want to do, I think, is put on the end eye. So we get a little bit of our green Loctite, high zoot. You can use red too, if you want. Not too much. Screw on the end eye that we've just assembled. Okay, tighten it up there in the vise. And 15 millimeter works pretty good here. Just snug it. It doesn't have to be real tight. It'll tighten up. Okay. All right. Next. Okay, let's assemble the shaft. We've got the end eye on. Okay, if you have any, I never use bump rubbers, but if you want to do bump rubbers, they go on now. And this is the top of the shock. Make sure that goes on. Then I have my little special tool. Who'd have guessed? This is a little sharp, so if you're doing it yourself, round that off or be real careful putting that X-ring across there. And then you want to put a little oil, a little, too much is just enough grease. Not too much. Sometimes you put too much on, it'll leak initially. It'll stop, but it's not fun if it doesn't. Pop that on. Then there's spacers you can put on if you're trying to shorten the shock a little from the inside. Now's the time. Okay, next we've got the piston and the spacer. This little O-ring goes on the piston. Just make sure that's on there. You can take this off. And also make sure you put this O-ring on the seal head, because otherwise you'll have a bit of a disaster. Just pop it down over there. That's good. All right. And on this, I showed you the difference. This is the longer one, so these two go on. And then put the nut on. And it takes, I think, a 13 or 14. 14 millimeter. And I just tighten them up, but it says 28 newtons, so let's just be like the real guys and put it on. Okay, it's set for 40, so I'll watch it. It won't beep. All right, there's 28 newtons. Perfect. And they say to put a little green Loctite in there. I never do it, but if you want, go ahead. I don't think it's going to come off. Okay, now let's, we're ready to kind of assemble it. So this actually, you know, you can put this in. This is a tool you put in there to, but I don't use that. I think it's kind of redundant. If you'll notice, this end is chamfered on the inside tube and this isn't. So this is the upside. You want to get a little, too much is just enough grease, and kind of, this is the piston ring, kind of get an, I like bend, just a little bend on these, because sometimes it's really hard to get them to go in. Make sure your little O-ring is in there. Oops, O-ring. And the way I like to assemble these is I take the tube, let's see where we can see it, and I'll put the tube in on now, and be real careful because it's real easy to get that O-ring kind of misaligned and up over this, and it's bad news. So and then here there, I don't know if you can see it, I'm sorry about the thing, but there's little insets here, so you want to make sure it's in there. And then put a little Ohlins, too much is just enough grease on there. Pop this in. Now you kind of lift this up a little and push down. Okay. And then there's the special tool. So here's the special tool. I like to use this first just to get it in. And what you want to do is you want to push down a little here, and it kind of holds it. And then be careful, because sometimes there's a little resistance right away because the threads are so fine, so just back off until you get it to thread, and make sure it's threading really nice and easy. Okay. Then this is one thing I use the torque wrench for. And you do it at 90 degrees and 40 newtons. Because if you get this, I get them where somebody's put them on way too tight, and it's just not good. The torque wrench is more for making sure you don't over tighten something. There it is. 40 newtons. Okay. All right. And then you can whack-a-doodle this. Just soft thing and pop that down. All right, we're getting there. Okay, now we want to, let's see, maybe I'll bring this down a little. Okay, now we'll put in the separator piston, another tool. All I have is tools here. Okay, so I'll pop this on. It's threaded in here. And put a little, Ohlins is too much. Too much is just enough grease on this. Slide it over. Same here, I put a little grease on this Teflon. Doesn't matter which way it goes, really. And then, this is where you really don't want to put too much grease. Just really, really grease this thing up pretty good. Really want this, lots of grease. And then put it in. Now the trouble is, when you put it in, there's the groove for the clip, and now it's kind of captivating the green O-ring. So you got to be real careful, because you want this Teflon ring to go inside, and sometimes it happens really fast. And just make sure it's not sticking out here. You go down, first floor ladies wear. And this is another little special tool for setting the depth. Usually about 7 millimeters is good. You could probably do more on this. I don't know what they say. But it only gets, I have a little mark here. It only gets better. In other words, as the oil heats up, this separator piston will come further out. So you just don't want it to top in on this, which it doesn't if you get this kind. And you can probably put more if you want some oil in here. I don't know. I don't think it's good. And having brain fade, sometimes I'll go to vacuum fill and I'll forget to put the circlip on, and alarms go off and there's oil all over the floor. So now I try to remember to pull it up. See, there goes the O-ring. To put the O-ring in and pull it up so I know that it's done. And tighten this, because sometimes this will slip down and I have to redo it. All right, so now let's put in a valve. And this is a circlip, not an O-ring, I know. Amateur actors, that's why. So, of course, we've got another special tool. Put this in here. Okay. And there's where we're going to do that. Let's just move it there a little. I guess we can see it. Okay, so this is where the valves go. I already explained, and it's got its O-ring, which you want to put a little grease on. So first we've got to stack on the shims. And the first is the clamping shim. And the smallest, since this is only 6 millimeters, is 7 millimeters. And you can see there's a little step in here. You can't maybe see it, but there is. So when you get to, and the OD of this is 10 millimeters. So when you get to 10, it's just, there's no little gap in here, nothing sticks up. But they all have a chamfer on one side. And you got to make sure when you get to your 10 that you put the chamfer down, because there's a chamfer here. There's a chamfer here. And if you don't, then it sticks. It's bad. And then I had some guy who didn't have a 10 millimeter, so he just put another one upside down, which isn't a bad idea in its face. But at least try to chamfer it, because he had it all stuck on here. So anyway, you do that, and then here's my stack. This is a customer thing, so I kind of don't say what the stack is. But you get the idea. Stack goes on next. And then this. And then, okay, I'm back. And then there's this little clip here. And you don't really need it. But every time you take it apart, everything will be down inside, because there's a ridge that holds this in. Once you tighten this, it's held in. But this just makes it more convenient. And the earlier ones had like a wave washer. For some reason, they decided they wanted it there, but the new ones don't do it. So be sure to put your spring in the spring. Inside there's that little washer, and the spring goes on it. This is the spring that's the the check valve spring. So be sure to put it in. Compression's left, rebounds right. R&R, right? Rebound. Some of the motorcycle ones, they're all odd and it's really hard. You know, they're sideways and everything, so you got to be careful. But on this, it's pretty much just like this. So I have my little torque wrench. I think I've showed it before. Uh-oh. Disaster. And it's just set to the proper torque for this. So put it in, tighten it up, and these valve holders, or whatever you want to call them, that I like, use the same tool as the ones that come stock. You just got to be careful not to have it pop out, you know. So just hold it down, and when it gets there. And this thing, where this sits, you'll see some of them, this is this high, and you'll see one higher or lower. That just has to do with the thickness of the shim stack. And they have what I had on there is a 1.5 millimeter clamping shim, make 2.5 millimeter ones and stuff. And you know, you have your two-way valve, which I don't ever use. I don't like them, but same thing. They use a little different tool. So I'll get the other one all set. You don't have to sit and watch this. And then we'll go to the final chapter. Okay, next thing we want to vacuum fill. So you just make sure your valves are open. It's not a disaster if they're not, but it makes things easier. Then you get the appropriate, this is the vacuum fill port. Pop that in. Don't over tighten. Hook up the machine. I pull this out. You'll see this, if it's in the picture, suck up. And then you go, I use 1304 in all the automotive shocks. Snowmobile shocks use 1304 also. And mostly the motorcycles, forks and stuff, and shocks use 1309. Then I go here, and it's kind of bright. Shock bleeding. Enter. Tank 1, which is 1304. This has 2 tanks. Shock with separator piston. Enter. Press start. Now you'll see this suck up because it's sucking on the... There we go. And we don't have to watch this all, but you do this twice. It'll be 3 or 4 minutes, and it'll force oil in there. It's also outgassing the oil in the tank. And you do that twice to get the least out. So we'll come back when it's all done. Okay, all done. 2 times, and here we go. Put this up. And then I have the little screw, and then I let a little oil come out of this and kind of overflow to make sure that I have no bubbles. You can bang it a little if it's got any bubbles in. You can, I don't know how there's people way more clever than me that can probably figure out how to hand bleed a TTX. Single tubes, you can hand bleed them very efficiently. But these have nooks, and although on the single tube I vac, it's just less messy, and I know it's correct. So I don't know how you do it on one of these, but you know, I'm sure there are guys who can do it. So next we're gonna put the gas in and get ready to stick it on the dyno. Okay, before we get the nitrogen all done, I neglected to mention last time that these andies come in all different lengths. These are the 20, you know, with the 1/2 inch spherical bearing, and the 14 millimeters also come in different lengths. This andi comes in 25, 40, 55, and 70 millimeters. And you add it to the length. In the data on these shocks, they give you a length from here to the end of the shaft. So you add whatever, this is 25 millimeters, so you add 25 millimeters to the length. These top eyes here come in 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, and 86 millimeters. But it moves, there's threads, and the threads are up here, so you have to subtract 18 millimeters if you're figuring length on the end eyes. So you subtract 18 millimeters from 56, and that's how much it adds to it. So it's really flexible. And then on one of my videos, I think with the Alfa Romeo, when we did TTX36 kit, they have one for a 36 millimeter spring that goes here and it's threaded here. I never use those unless it's some, unless I just never use. We had to use them on the Alpha, and I explained why. So there's a lot of flexibility in length, and there's different shafts. You don't have to use the right shaft. Use a shorter or a longer if you put some spacers so it doesn't bottom out. So anyway, let's get this done here. Get my little, this screwdriver is blunted so I don't mess stuff up. So basically you just undo this and push down and you get your circlip off. Come on, baby. There we go. Take this out, unscrew it. This is all set. The depth of this is set. Then you get your end, put a little grease on it, just to make sure it goes in right. And then I have this. I have a tool here. Who'd have guessed? That you can, if you have trouble getting these in and out, this tool threads in. But I don't use it. What I do is I take my filler, which I'm going to use anyway, the needle filler, and I always put a little. Too much is just enough grease on the needle. Pop it in there and screw it in. See, it screws in. And I put my little end that I have cut off so this is open. And it makes it a little easier because there's not pressure in there. And then I have another special Brenner Shocks tool. And I just put this, let me make sure I got it. There we go. I just put this over, give it a whack, and then it goes down. It's easy because the pressure can be relieved up here. Put in your circlip. And I pull it up, make sure I got it in place, pop that off. Then get your nitrogen filler thingy, my Franken filler here. And these, you can do 6, you can kind of see it here maybe. You can do 6, I do 8. You can do 6 to 10 bar. But I like 8 bars in the middle. You don't worry about cavitation on these, so they use less nitrogen, and since you don't have to worry about cavitation, but if you get a big hit, you could suck air through the seals and stuff. So you got to have some nitrogen. There are probably other reasons I don't know about. And then pop this out. Pop in your little screw. And it's ready to go on the dyno. You just before you put it on the dyno, since these are wide open, you put them where you want them, and I dyno it just to make sure I haven't screwed up, which happens, and we'll go from there. Okay, it's all on the dyno. We'll turn it on and warm it up to 90 degrees. And see if there's any oil puking out or whatever, and I'll check to see if it matches the other one I did, and everything is functionally looking good. You can see on the dyno if it's not functionally working. and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, it all came out good, no oil spewing everywhere. The dyno sheet matched and looked great. So the last things we want to do, we want to put on the spring perch, file that on. There's a little nylon screw I'll put in there, but if you have preload, you don't really need it. I don't run them on my car, but they're there. You never know. Okay. But before I put on the end, I'll get my special tool here, of course. Pop it in here. And put the Brenner seal of approval on it. Let's see. Got my little Brenner tune decal. The kit comes with an Ohlins decal, and also a gas pressure decal. So if you're doing it yourself, but the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. All right, that's done. Hopefully, I did autofocus, so hopefully it'll stay in focus here for you. And then it has a little O-ring here and the upper perch, and this just kind of holds it on in place. All right, let's see. Do we have focus? Focus, Douglas. There it is, ready to go. And that's how you do an Ohlins TTX kit. Thanks for watching. BrennerShocks.com. Call me if you need some Ohlins, because I'm only Ohlins. All right, see ya.